The sky burned red over the city of. Elder stood at the top of the Temple of Stars, her 4 arms folded across her chest. She was old, older than anyone else on the planet. Her silver skin had faded to pale gray over the centuries, and her opal eyes had seen many things, but she had never seen anything like this. The warships hung in the sky like black clouds. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They blocked out the sun, and their shadow fell over the whole city. The people below ran through the streets, crying and screaming. They did not understand what was happening. They had never known war. They were a peaceful people. They had lived on this green world for 10,000 years. They had built beautiful cities and great temples. They had studied the stars and written poetry about the light between them. They had never made weapons. They had never needed them. Now they were going to die. A young named climbed the temple steps to stand beside Elder. Her silver skin was still bright, and her eyes were wide with fear. She was a scholar, a student of the old texts. She had spent her life reading about the past. Now she wondered if her people would have a future. Elder said, her voice shaking, "What do we do?" Did not answer right away. She watched the black ships in the sky. She remembered an old story, something her own grandmother had told her many centuries ago, a prophecy from the ancient times when the first came to this world. "When darkness eats the sky," whispered, "beings of fire and iron will fall from the void." Looked at her. "What does that mean?" "I do not know," admitted. "I never believed it was real." A great voice boomed across the city. It came from the ships, so loud that it shook the temple walls. The voice spoke in a language they did not know, but somehow they understood every word. They had technology that put words directly into the mind. "People of," the voice said, "I am General of the Empire. You have 7 rotations to surrender your world. Give us everything you have, your food, your water, your children to work in our mines. If you refuse, we will kill every living thing on this planet. There will be no second warning." The voice stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the words. "Grab's arm. We have to do something. We have to fight." "Fight with what?" asked sadly. "We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We do not even know how to make a fist." "Then we run. We hide. We do something." Shook her head. "There is nowhere to run. There is nowhere to hide. They have conquered 40 worlds. No one has ever escaped them." That night went down into the deep places beneath the temple. These were the old archives, where the ancient had stored their secrets. Most of it was just old books and faded paintings. But in the deepest room, behind a door that had not been opened in 1,000 years, found something else. It was a machine, a beacon, meant to send signals across the stars. The ancient had built it long ago, before they decided to give up technology and live in peace. The beacon was pointed at a distant part of the galaxy, toward a small yellow star that the old texts called Sol. Next to the beacon was a note, written in a language so old that could barely read it, but she understood enough. "The fierce ones," the note said. "If all hope is lost, call them. They will come." Did not know who the fierce ones were. She did not know if the beacon still worked. She did not know if anyone would hear, but she had no other choice. She turned on the beacon. A beam of light shot up through the temple, through the burning sky, and into the darkness of space. The signal flew across the galaxy at speeds that should have been impossible. Waited 1 rotation passed, then 2, then 3. They began their attack on the 4th rotation. They bombed the coastal cities first. Millions of died in the fire. The screams could be heard from the temple, sat beside the beacon and cried. 5 rotations, 6 rotations. On the morning of the 7th rotation, General prepared his final assault. His ships moved into position over the capital city. His soldiers loaded their weapons. They gathered in the streets, holding each other, waiting for death. Elder stood at the top of the temple one last time. She looked up at the sky full of black ships and closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about the old prophecy. "Beings of fire and iron," she whispered, "where are you?" And then something answered. It started as a flash of light, then another, then 100 more. The sky tore open and ships came pouring through, not black ships like these ships were gray and white, covered in strange symbols. There were thousands of them. The froze. This was not possible. No one could travel so fast. No one could bring so many ships. Opened her eyes. Through her tears she saw the symbol painted on the side of the nearest ship. A blue circle, crossed with lines of gold. Ran up the temple steps, laughing and crying at the same time. "They came," she gasped. "Elder, they came, the fierce ones came." Stared at the ships filling the sky. For the first time in 7 rotations, she felt something she had forgotten. Hope. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the world below. It was a beautiful world, green and blue, covered in forests and oceans. It reminded him of Earth. It reminded him of home. But the sky above this world was full of enemy ships. Black ships with weapons pointed at cities full of innocent people. Had seen this before many times. He had fought in wars since he was young. He had watched planets burn. He had buried too many friends. He was tired of it, but he would never stop fighting. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "they are hailing us. They want to know who we are." Nodded. He pressed a button on his chair, and his voice went out to every ship in the system, both human and alien. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Republic Navy. We received a distress signal from this world. We are here to help." He paused and looked at the fleet on his screen. "To the forces, you have 7 minutes to release all prisoners and leave this system. After that, we stop asking." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the general responded. His voice was deep and cruel, full of laughter. 7 minutes. Little creatures, do you know who we are? We are the Empire. We have conquered 40 worlds. We have crushed armies 100 times your size. You are nothing. You are insects. Go home to your tiny planet before we destroy you." Smiled. It was not a happy smile. 6 minutes now, he said, and cut the channel. On the planet below, they watched the sky in confusion. They could see the new ships, but they did not understand what was happening. Some of them had seen images of the beings inside those ships. They were strange creatures, small and soft, with only 2 arms and no claws. How could such weak-looking things save them? Lieutenant stood in the drop bay of her ship, checking her rifle one more time. She was the commander of the Marine forces, the soldiers who would fight on the ground. She was not tall and she was not big, but her eyes were hard and her hands were steady. "Listen up," she said to her soldiers. "There are millions of innocent people down there. They have never held a weapon in their lives. They are counting on us. We are not going to let them down." Her soldiers nodded. They were afraid. They were always afraid before a battle, but they were also ready. That was what made them human. The 7 minutes ended. They opened fire first. Their weapons lit up the sky, sending beams of red light toward the human fleet. They expected the small gray ships to break apart like toys. They were wrong. The human ships moved like nothing they had ever seen. They dodged and weaved between the energy beams. They fired back with weapons that punched through armor like paper. Explosions filled the space between the 2 fleets. Admiral gave orders in a calm, steady voice. He had done this 1,000 times. Group 3, flank left. Group 7, cover the civilian transports. All ships, focus fire on their command vessel. The battle lasted 7 minutes. Later, historians would call it the 7-minute war. The fleet, which had conquered 40 worlds and never lost a battle, was destroyed in 418 seconds. Their ships became drifting wreckage. Their mighty general was trapped in a crippled vessel, screaming orders that no one could follow. On the ground, Lieutenant led the assault on the occupied cities. Her soldiers dropped from the sky in metal pods, landing in the middle of positions. They were outnumbered 50-1. It did not matter. The humans fought with a fury they had never seen. They ran toward danger instead of away from it. They threw themselves on grenades to save their friends. They kept fighting even when they were wounded, even when they should have been dead. "What are these things?" a soldier screamed into his radio. "They will not stop, they will not die." Private Myra was one of the youngest soldiers in the unit. She was barely 20 years old, with a round face and gentle eyes. Before she joined the military, she had wanted to be a teacher. She had wanted to help children learn. Now she ran through the burning streets of an alien city, firing her rifle at enemies twice her size. She was scared. She had never been so scared in her life, but she kept running anyway. In a ruined building, she heard a sound, a small sound like a child crying. She stopped and listened. The sound came from behind a broken wall. Myra climbed over the rubble and found a child huddled in the corner. The child was small and silver, with 4 thin arms wrapped around its knees. Its opal eyes were full of tears. Myra did not speak the language. The child did not speak Korean, but some things do not need words. Myra put down her rifle. She took off her helmet so the child could see her face. Then she knelt down, opened her arms, and pulled the child close. "It is okay," she whispered, even though the child could not understand. "You are safe now, we have got you." Outside, the last soldiers were surrendering. The battle was over. They were free. And in a ruined building, a human soldier held an alien child, and both of them cried. After the battle, they expected their saviors to return to the stars. They had done what they came to do. They had destroyed the enemy fleet. They had freed the captured cities. There was no reason for them to stay. But they stayed anyway. Admiral Park came down to the surface in a small shuttle. He walked through the ruined streets of the capital city, past the burned buildings and the crying refugees. He did not look like a conquering hero. He looked tired. He looked sad. Elder met him at the steps of the Temple of Stars. She had to look down to see his face. The humans were so small compared to their bodies seemed fragile, their skin soft and easily broken. It was hard to believe these creatures had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Admiral said, bowing her head, "My people owe you our lives. We will never forget what you have done." Bowed back. It was a strange gesture for a human, but someone had taught him that it was respectful in culture. "We were glad to help," he said, "but our work is not finished." Tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "Your cities are destroyed. Your people are hurt. You have no food, no medicine, no shelter." Looked up at her with his small, dark eyes. "We cannot leave you like this. We will stay and help you rebuild." Did not know what to say. In all her long years, she had never seen anything like this. They took everything and gave nothing. Every empire she had heard of did the same, but these humans were different. "Why?" she asked. The question came out as a whisper. "Why do you help us? We have nothing to give you, we cannot pay you, we cannot fight for you, we are nothing." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down on the temple steps like a tired old man, sat beside him. "Many years ago," said, "my people were like we fought wars against each other. We killed each other for land and gold and power. We almost destroyed ourselves." He looked up at the sky, at the stars that were just starting to appear. "But we learned. Slowly and painfully, we learned. We learned that the universe is cold and dark. There is no one out there who will save you. The only warmth comes from choosing to protect each other." He turned to look at, "You called for help and we heard you. That is reason enough." In the days that followed, the humans worked side by side with They brought food from their ships. They set up medical stations in every city. They shared their technology without asking for anything in return. Doctor was in charge of the medical teams. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been a doctor for 30 years, but she had never treated an alien before. The bodies were different from human bodies. They had 2 hearts instead of 1. Their blood was blue instead of red. Many of her medicines did not work on them. So she learned. She studied biology day and night. She modified her equipment. She invented new treatments. She worked until she collapsed from exhaustion, and then she got up and worked some more. One night, a mother brought her dying child to the medical station. The child had been injured in the bombing. There was internal bleeding that did not know how to stop. "Please," the mother begged, "please save my daughter." Looked at the child on the table. She looked at the monitors showing vital signs she barely understood. She looked at her own hands, shaking with fear and exhaustion. Then she got to work. She operated for 6 hours. She made mistakes and fixed them. She tried things that should not have worked and somehow did. When the sun came up, the child was still alive. The mother fell to her knees and wept. She grabbed hands and pressed them to her forehead, a gesture of deepest gratitude. "Thank you," the mother said. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Did not understand the words, but she understood the feeling. She knelt down and hugged the mother, and they cried together. Across the city, Engineer Corporal Han was helping to rebuild the Temple of Stars. He was not a religious man, but he could see that the temple was important to the. So he worked carefully, treating each stone with respect. An old priest watched him work. After many hours, the priest came to stand beside him. "You humans are strange," the priest said. "You have weapons that can destroy worlds, but you use your hands to build temples." "Thought about this. We have learned that destroying is easy," he said. "Building is hard, building is worth more." The priest nodded slowly. "What do your people believe in? What gods do you worship?" "Many things," said. "My grandmother prays to our ancestors. She believes they watch over us from the other side." "We worship the light between stars," the priest said. "We believe it connects all living things." Looked up at the night sky. "Maybe your light and my grandmother's ancestors are watching the same thing. Maybe we are not so different." But the peace did not last. 3 weeks after the battle, a message came from the Empire. It was a threat. The Empire had heard what happened at. They were coming with their full army, 100,000 ships, 1,000,000,000,000 soldiers. They would destroy the humans and the Together. Admiral called a meeting of his officers. They gathered in the command room of the Indomitable and looked at the maps showing the coming enemy fleet. "We cannot win this fight," said quietly. "If we leave now, we might escape. The want revenge on us more than they want. If we go, the might survive." The room was silent. Everyone knew what he was really asking. Should we abandon these people to save ourselves? Lieutenant spoke first. Her voice was steady. "Admiral, I did not come here to run away. These people trusted us. I will not betray that trust." One by one, the other officers agreed. They would stay, they would fight, they would probably die. But they would not abandon the. When Elder heard what the humans had decided, she wept. Not from fear, from love. The Armada arrived on a cold morning. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched them come. 100,000 warships, filling the sky like a swarm of black insects. It was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. They had brought everything they had. They wanted to send a message to the universe. No one defies the Empire. Looked at his own fleet, 3,000 ships. They were outnumbered more than 30 to 1. "All hands," he said calmly into the communicator. "This is the Admiral. I will not lie to you. The enemy fleet is bigger than ours. Many of us will not survive this day, but I want you to remember why we are here. Behind us is a planet full of innocent people. They are counting on us. They believe in us." He paused and took a deep breath. "Today, we show the galaxy what humans are made of. All ships prepare for battle." On the planet below, Lieutenant gathered her ground forces. They would send soldiers down to finish what their ship started. His job was to stop them. She had 500 soldiers. They had 50,000. "I know the numbers do not look good," she told her troops. "But numbers are not everything. We have something they do not have. We have something worth dying for." Private Myra stood in the crowd, clutching her rifle. The child she had saved was in a shelter somewhere, hidden and protected. Myra had promised the child she would come back. She intended to keep that promise. The battle began with fire. The fleet opened up with everything they had. Beams of red light cut through space, slamming into the human ships. The first wave of human vessels exploded in balls of orange flame. But the humans did not break. They did not run. Instead, they fought back with tactics that made no sense to the Admiral split his fleet into small groups. They darted between the enemy ships like fish swimming through a net. They attacked from unexpected angles. They used asteroids as shields. They fired missiles and then hid, forcing them to shoot at empty space. "What are they doing?" the commander screamed. "This is madness. This is not how war works." But it was working. For every human ship destroyed, 3 ships went down with it. The humans were losing, but they were losing slowly, and they were taking the enemy with them. On the ground, the first drop ships landed outside the capital city. Thousands of soldiers poured out, their black armor gleaming in the morning sun. They marched toward the city like a wave of death. Lieutenant waited for them. She had set traps in the streets, explosives hidden in buildings, snipers on the rooftops. Every block was a fortress. Every corner was a killing ground. They entered the city expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found hell. The fighting went on for hours, was everywhere at once, shouting orders, firing her rifle, pulling wounded soldiers to safety. She took a bullet in her shoulder and kept fighting. She took another in her leg and kept fighting. "You will have to kill me to stop me," she growled at the enemy, "and I do not die easy." In space, the battle reached its peak. The human fleet was down to 800 ships. The still had more than 60,000. Admiral looked at the numbers and made his decision. "All ships fall back to defensive positions around the planet," he ordered. "Protect the civilian transports. The Indomitable will handle the rest." His officers stared at him. "Admiral, what are you going to do?" Smiled. It was the same smile he had given before the first battle. "I am going to end this." He ordered all non-essential crew to evacuate the ship. Then he pointed the Indomitable directly at the command vessel and pushed the engines to full power. The commander saw the human flagship coming. His tactical computers told him it was suicide. No sane commander would sacrifice their own ship. But that was the thing about humans. Sometimes they did things that were not sane. Opened a channel. "This is Admiral Park to the commander. In my culture we have a saying, all or nothing. Let me show you what it means." The Indomitable hit the command vessel at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire so bright it could be seen from the planet's surface. 17 other ships were caught in the blast. The commander was killed instantly. Without their leader, the fleet fell into chaos. They had been trained to follow orders, not to think for themselves. Now they had no orders to follow. The human ships attacked. The remaining vessels turned and ran, crashing into each other in their panic. What had been the largest fleet in galactic history became the largest retreat in galactic history. On the ground, the soldiers heard that their fleet was gone. They threw down their weapons and surrendered. Lieutenant accepted their surrender with blood running down her face and fire in her eyes. They had won. In the wreckage of the Indomitable, rescue teams searched for survivors. They did not expect to find any. The explosion had been too powerful. No one could have lived through it. But then a medic saw movement. A hand reaching out from under a piece of twisted metal. They pulled Admiral from the debris. He was badly burned. He was barely breathing, but he was alive. When he opened his eyes, he saw Doctor leaning over him, tears streaming down her face. "Admiral," she whispered, "can you hear me?" His voice was weak, barely a whisper. "Are they safe?" Smiled through her tears. "Yes, Admiral, they are safe. You saved them. You saved everyone." Closed his eyes. For the first time in many years, he felt at peace. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. A small species from a distant planet had defeated the Empire, not once but twice. They had destroyed the largest fleet ever assembled. They had killed the High Command. They had done the impossible. On 100 different worlds, beings who had lived in fear of the heard the news and felt hope for the first time. If the humans could fight back, maybe they could too. Maybe the Empire was not as strong as they thought. The rebellion started slowly, first on one planet, then on another, then on a dozen more. Slave races that had served them for generations rose up and fought for their freedom. Within a year, the great empire collapsed. It fell apart like a house made of sand, washed away by a tide of anger and courage. And at the center of it all were the humans. Life slowly returned to normal. The cities were rebuilt. The gardens grew back. The children played in the streets again, no longer afraid of the sky. Admiral Park recovered slowly from his injuries. He spent many months in the hospital, learning to walk again, learning to breathe without pain. When he finally left the hospital, he walked with a cane and his hair had turned completely white. But he was alive. That was enough. The Terran Republic offered him a promotion. They wanted to make him the supreme commander of all human military forces. He refused. He said he was tired of war. He wanted to rest. Lieutenant was promoted to commander. They gave her a new ship, the indomitable II, built to honor the memory of the original. She accepted the command with a serious face and a grateful heart. She had lost many friends in the battle. She would carry their memory with her forever. Doctor stayed on. She built the first medical school where humans and could learn together. She taught young doctors from both species how to heal each other. Her students would go on to save millions of lives across the galaxy. Engineer Corporal Han also stayed on. He finished rebuilding the Temple of Stars, stone by stone. Then he started building other things: houses, schools, bridges. He fell in love with a woman named Lyra, and they adopted 3 children together, 2 and 1 human orphan who had lost her parents in the war. Private Myra kept her promise. She came back for the child she had saved. The child had no family left, no one to take care of her. So Myra adopted her. She named the child after the elder who had first called for help. Little grew up speaking both Korean and she called Myra mother in both languages. The Galactic Council was formed 1 year after the battle. Representatives from dozens of species came together to create a new government, one based on cooperation instead of conquest. They asked humanity to lead the council. The human representative was uncomfortable with this idea. Humans did not want to be rulers. They did not want to be masters. They just wanted to help. Elder spoke to the council. She was very old now, near the end of her long life, but her voice was still strong. "You ask why we trust the humans," she said to the gathered representatives. "Let me tell you why. When they came to our world, they did not ask for payment. They did not demand our loyalty. They simply helped us. Their doctors worked through the night to save our children. Their engineers rebuilt our temples with their own hands. Their soldiers died to protect people they had never met." She paused and looked around the room. They are not mighty because they destroy. They are mighty because they protect. They are mighty because they care. That is why we trust them. That is why you should trust them too. The council voted unanimously to make the Terran Republic the leader of the new alliance. Years passed. The galaxy changed. New friendships were formed between species that had once been enemies. Trade routes opened. Knowledge was shared. The old wars faded into history. On the anniversary of the Battle of, a ceremony was held at the Temple of Stars. Humans gathered together to remember those who had died and to celebrate the peace that had been won. Admiral Park attended the ceremony. He was very old now, walking slowly with his cane, but his eyes were still sharp. Elder stood beside him. She had only a few months left to live, and she wanted to spend them with her friends. "Do you ever regret it?" asked him as they stood before the memorial wall, where the names of the fallen were carved in stone. "Do you ever regret answering our call?" Looked at the names. So many names, so many good people who would never go home. He thought about the cost of what they had done, the lives lost, the pain suffered, the scars that would never heal. Then he looked out at the crowd. He saw a doctor teaching a young medical student. He saw Commander laughing with a group of children. He saw Han holding hands with his wife while their children ran around them. He saw Myra watching her adopted daughter play with other children and human together. "Someone once told me that the universe is cold and dark," said quietly. "And maybe it is, but we do not have to be." Took his hand in two of hers. Her silver skin was warm against his. "No," she agreed, "we do not." Above them the stars shone bright. Human ships and ships patrolled together, guardians of a peace that had seemed impossible. And on the wall of the temple, a new inscription had been carved, written in both human and languages. It said, "When all hope was lost, the humans fell from the sky, and they taught us that hope was never truly gone. It was only waiting to be carried by those brave enough to answer the call." The ceremony ended. The crowd went home, but stayed a little longer, two old friends watching the stars together. Somewhere out there, in the cold darkness of space, another beacon might be calling. Another world might be crying for help. And the humans would answer. They always would. That was what made them human.